to work on this. My daughter's got a project that she wants to use some asset management information on, and she asked me what to use. So I started to come back and play with this one here. Now, AssetTiger is we back into the thing, Bob. It's actually, you've got up to 250 assets which you can do a subscription plan for free. If you use up to 500, it'll cost you $100 per year. If you go up to 2,500 assets, it's 200 assets a year. If you're up to 10,000, that's 350. Or else you can buy some labels. These people actually make labels, and they do very nice labels. And so you can buy the labels, and that offsets credits against the actual number of assets that you've got if you buy tags that you come through. So those are scanning tags that you can use. So they thought a way to actually sell their tags was, in fact, to create an online database for people. So within asset management tool that they can use. So you can actually put assets in there, you can put the contracts and licensing, so you can associate them with assets. So certain licenses or things need to be done. It will create a whole load of reports. It'll create security, so there's encryption on them. This to me is something that's so brilliant, is it actually gives you the free mobile device that goes with it. So you've got a mobile app, and the app on my one there, now look at that. Let's just go to dashboard, and you come in and there's a front dashboard. The dashboard is a lot more limited, and I'll talk about that briefly in the next part of the thing, but it's really good. From the mobile, you can actually use your smartphone to scan barcodes, take pictures. So if you see a barcode somewhere, you can scan the thing and it'll tell you what the asset is. So straight away you've got information on the asset, so you don't have to go searching through things. So what that gives you the power of is that you can go and do audits on site, or you can actually have people who are out on different sites and things like that, or different properties, and they can report broken or items that need repair. It also actually has alerts, so therefore you can set a maintenance period on something, like every 3 months on a certain thing, like a fan that needs to be checked or something, and those alerts will come up. It also, you can reserve and check out items as well. So if you've got loose equipment or computers, or theodolites or something else, or a label maker or something, you can check in, check out those users, and you can just put those labels on there. And then also there's as many users as you want. So is another thing. It's unlimited users, but within the users you can limit the access of what they see, so that you've got a hierarchy. You as the admin person can actually choose what level of access people have, and also filter out what they want. Like you might actually only want them to see one site or one property and not other properties, depending on where they are, or a certain region and stuff. So you can filter that. So you've got the mobile app, and I think the mobile app that comes for free is absolutely brilliant. And again, you can use it to scan barcodes. You can take a picture of something. So on your phone, you can actually take a picture of something that's broken and go up and associate that, and you change the status of an asset. Now, I've just been playing a little bit with it today. I played with it about a year ago, and I was sort of trying to do it in a way that's a bit effective. So one thing that you can actually do, and again, the dashboard is a personalization thing. So when you log in, the dashboard is set up for you. Now, I've got 6 across through here. I could say actually only want 4 across, or something like that. It looks different on the mobile screen. It's really set up for your tablet or your laptop or your computer, so how many columns you got. So like on the mobile phone, it shows these. You also have these charts. Now the charts don't come through on the mobile phone, but they do come through on the desktop. So you can actually, if there's somebody who's actually doing a whole load of funding and budgeting and purchasing, they'd actually have those flags, and you can see the asset by value, by department, by category. So you can start drilling down to actually just get overviews from charts that come through here. I've got charts on here which actually say what things are coming up that I need to start reacting to. I've also got feeds. So this one here, you can see check-in, check-out items, or repairing items, or things like that. So if you're an operations manager, you want to see those. If you're somebody who's doing bookings and stuff, then you can actually do reservations, like you've got a meeting room and stuff like that. You can also do that with that. Now, on the actual setup itself, you actually have sites, locations, and then you can categorize things, and you can actually categorize things by department. So within those, you can do those sorts of things. Within an asset, you can actually have a list of the assets. At the moment, I've got 73 or something going through, and then you can also structure how that uses. But basically, if you're adding an asset, you get a form and you've got to fill things in manually. So that can be quite tedious if there's quite a lot of information to actually do. And especially if you bulk up, you've got a 1,000 assets that you want to get up in there, or something, or you need to organize your assets. And the thing is, a lot of times with the assets, you don't stick them up there the first time and fill out every single form. You're actually only filling out some of the things, and also you've got to test to see how it actually works. So on here, I've got 3 sites. I've got 2 different properties, and I've also got the actual overall outside of the site. So in the location, I've got a whole load of locations. I've got all of the rooms on this specific property. That I haven't set them up for the other property that hasn't got any locations at this point in time. So you're actually associating sites and locations, and then you're hanging your assets on all of those things, and then you're hanging them by your categories as well. So it's a building, or it's computer equipment, or equipment, or external furniture, or furniture and fittings, or it might be external, or something like that. So you can actually add different categories, and you can actually have departments if you've got different departments. On this particular project, it doesn't need them, but for another one I can do. And also, if you've got funding sources, on mine I've actually just got only my bank account, but if you've got 2 or 3 funding sources for a big project, you can say where those funding ones do, so you can see which assets are actually associated with which funds and things like that, and how they're done. Now within the funding stuff, they'll do depreciations and all of that sort of things as well. There's reports and tools. At this point in time, I'm actually just doing some of the setup. Now, one really smart thing in the setup, if we just kind of go through into our options, is it'll do an auto increment, which I think is brilliant. So there's these sort of simple things that you can do, that if you're taking things out, or you've checked things out or something like that, you can check, and you can give people a reminder one day before. You can add maybe a week before or 2 weeks before, and the same with return reminder, lease return, stuff like that. And you can identify which is with customers, which is their unique identifier, whether it's the name or the email that you're using. And with employers and employees, you can actually, employees, you can actually have the name or the number. The other thing that you can do is that you can auto increment. So every time you actually add an asset, it automatically just increments one up. Now I've got a prefix here, then I've got 5 zeros, so that means I'm only allowed 99,999 assets. If I go over that, this won't work. So therefore, maybe the thing is to actually do, it's 6 or 7, depending on how many assets you're likely to have on your project. Now, because you can do different sites and things like that, you can actually do, you maybe have tens of thousands of assets. People have been telling me about some of those things. But again, it's how granular you want to be on that information. If you've got too much, it's kind of getting tough to sort of manage. So that's another aspect of the things. Now, the power that I see in this one here is that you can import and export your information. So I'm actually just going through an exercise here where I uploaded a load of asset data, and it wasn't quite complete. So I've actually had to come back and suddenly think, oh, well, I actually want to add one of those. Now, the first time I did a lot of this, I ended up doing quite a lot of fields. And then I was spending a lot of time just trying to set up those fields. And I suddenly thinking, well, I need an asset, and then I've got a data associated with that asset. How often am I going to use that asset? Can I actually put it in a codified format? So the 2 things that you're going to need straight away, well, you only need one, which is the asset tag ID, but also a description type thing. So that's what I'm dropping out here. So here's my asset tag, and here's my description. It's a roof, it's corrugated steel, and it's associated with this particular property. So I know it's not a roof for another one. So that code there goes to that. And then one of the ones that I added, again, sorry, I better go back into the options within those. Within the database itself, you can actually add your own variables. So therefore, if you want to associate something with a specific category, or sorry, with a specific asset, or all the assets a certain thing, and one of mine was condition. And then I actually suddenly thought, well, first of all, I just want to bulk upload the things so I can go through and do an audit and actually inspect everything and just see the condition and actually do that stuff. So I've then got an audit date where I've gone through and inspected the conditions, so I know that on that date the condition of an object was done, rather than trying to do it. So these are the ones which are preset that are already there, and you can choose to have them in there or not choose to have them in there. Mine is attitude is just chuck them all in there. And then these are ones that I've actually added. Now on this one here I've added a condition, and the condition can be from 1 to 5, and I've actually given a description of this. And 1 is it's between 50 and 100% of its life, and then it's going to have a color code green. 2 is going to be 33 to 50% of its life, and it's going to be color blue. So if I go and put it in a chart and somebody sees all these greens and blues and yellows and oranges, they can see what they relate to, that they can see that there's an association with these. Later on I might take up this extra information and then maybe clean up those things, but I basically got a drop down list for my condition. So when I'm adding my asset, and if I'm doing it manually one by one, I can pick and choose. I can also do this on the mobile phone. I can go through and actually suddenly say I'm inspecting that asset, and in fact it's got its that it's saying it's condition 1. In fact it's actually condition 3, so I need to do that. Now you can also do those by all categories or limited categories. So we just can't, oh bugger, I'm just missed that bar. And so I've done all of these by all categories, but you can only do them by some. So again, with the categories within these things, there's a whole lot of things that you can do with the categories. So you can actually have different categories for different things, and you can have departments. As I said, this is slow because I've got about 3 or 4 big programs open and I'm videoing at this point in time, so bear with me please on that. So I've actually got building improvements or buildings, so I'm actually having the item as a building, and then I've anything like a door, a window and anything, or walls, linings, I'm actually calling it building improvements. You can actually have improvements, you can have vehicles, and then you can also have a parent-child relationship. Now you actually have locations which are sort of parents in their way, whereas you're suddenly saying I have a wall and it's associated with location, which is that room. So I've got a floor, I've got a ceiling, I've got all of those things, so I can associate those. But then I can also have loose stuff like a table, so I can actually have a table in that room, and so that's a table, it's just another asset, and I've associated with that room. But then I've got some chairs. Now I could associate the chairs with the table, or I could associate the chairs with the room. Now if I associate it like it's a dining table, and the dining table has 6 chairs, or it's a meeting table in a conference room and it has 8 chairs, so you can actually make the table the parent, and you can make the chairs the children of the table, so therefore they're associated with that table. So if that table moves to another room, notionally those chairs move to that other location as well. So it's just a way of tying things up. So if you've got something like a vehicle, you can actually have the wheels or the tires or things, so they can be children of that vehicle, so they associated with that, so they're not substitution. And again, the same with software, or sorry, not software, but you might say hardware. So you actually have an asset which is a computer. Now that might be the actual computer box itself, but then you'll have a monitor that will be a child of that computer, and then a keyboard which will be a child of that, and maybe some cables, or maybe your cables, you're just suddenly saying I've got 50 cables, so I'm not really going to associate each with those, or a mouse or something like that. So you can actually do parent-children association, which is really handy. Now I have quite into playing with some of those things there. So again, this is one of the things. Now what I'm basically playing at this point in time, and just to do this overview at this point in time, is that I've used an example. Now my daughter's got something else happening and she's got a whole load of other things, so I thought I'd do it as a test thing on this for mine. So what I'd actually done is that I'd done a previous project which was asset capture for things like that. and I was actually pushing it, trying to do a service in Wellington. It didn't really take off, whereas I would actually go and get people's information from their houses so that they actually had an asset register, and then I'd host this on a website, and it had several things that I was offering as a limited service that it would actually do. So the first thing that I'd actually do is I'd actually do a set of drawings for them and things like that. I can do 360 views or panoramas inside things, or a set of 2D drawings. So this one is this stuff. Now the way that this is set up here is to make the website go a lot faster, is that I can actually just click through. It's almost like leafing through a set of drawings. As I said, this is just slightly slow because of the fact that I've got a lot of things, like I've got OBS running and Revit running and a few other things running through here. So if I click on the floor plan here, you'll see it gives you a general floor plan coming through there. But if I zoom in on this floor plan, which I'm just going to do into my browser through here, you see it's very pixelated, because all that is just a JPEG image. So it's a very small image and it just loads up very fast. But if you actually want that plan, you're suddenly thinking, so it's like leafing through drawings. What have I got in my drawings that I need to show the builders certain things, or I need an image that I can actually show them, that I can come through here. And here's a section through the building. That's the one that I wanted to tell the builder, because it gives the height of the thing so he's clear on what he's got to do, is that you can then click on this one and download the actual the PDF of that actual file. So this one here quickly views your files, and this one here allows you to click into here and download that particular file itself. Now when I download that PDF, it'll come through and it'll be very clean. So I could actually own it in Adobe Acrobat, or I can actually save that file onto my PC. I'm not going to do that at this point in time. So all this has done is it's actually just split my browser screen, so that one part of the browser shows the image, the other part is showing this list. So again, I've got things like a maintenance checklist, or I've got schedules and things like that. So again, if I just look at my schedules and quantity schedules of those, they come through here, but again, it's not very clear because that's just a JPEG, so it's very poor. And I didn't actually want, so I want something quick and dirty that you can actually just quickly flick through your drawings, then you can download the ones that you want. I also said, well, another thing that we could do is we could actually download the 3D PDF. So that's one thing which I actually did for this particular exercise here. So here's a 3D PDF that I download through. Now you're suddenly saying, well, compared to a database, which is what AssetTiger is, but the database, it doesn't really tell you too much about a particular door. Like, look at that door there. It's actually the wrong door. But it's got glazing in the door, and it's a timber frame door, and I could get some information on that door. So if I actually just click on this particular door here that I've highlighted through there, sorry, I've just got to come up to here. If I click on the actual door there, it's got information on that door. So that's really handy. So instead of actually going to schedules, which is what designers we would do, or contractors or things like that, we'd actually have a list of all of those things there. One thing that you can actually do within 3D PDFs is just go into the model, right hand click, and export as a CSV the whole tree. So I'm going to export that now with all of the information relating to any of those objects that I've actually put in inside Revit. Now I'm going to call this ABC, and it's going to change it as a CSV file, as you see there. So when I come through, I've now got a macro that I actually built up, and this was part of the process of suddenly saying, well, a lot of people want the information, but then if they've got to go and add everything up through a schedule, it's a bit nuisance. So let's just blow this data here away, and I'm just going to go in and import the that particular information through there, and I'm just going to go through and find out the downloads. There we go, and I'll do it by date, just to find our ABC file, and there it is, ABC. So we load that up. So we then load that up, and they say, well, actually all I want is the room information. And so we go and filter by rooms, and when we just put that into another spreadsheet. So it's going to make another spreadsheet along here going through there. And it's going to say, well, actually, what's my total wall area? Because I want a painter to come in and paint all of my walls. So I can just do an auto sum onto there and go enter. So I got 230 square meters of total wall area. So they can then give me a quote based on that of actually going through and painting. They can come and inspect and see, but that's basically all the wall areas, less doors and windows. So that's a really handy tool. So, and again, they've got to go and paint the skirting and the scotia. So there's 132 square meters of skirting that they've got to paint. In fact, mine were polyurethane because they're painted. And then for the ceilings, we've got to say, how much ceilings do we actually have to go and paint? So we can actually just go through and get that there. So we can actually say we've got 87 square meters of ceilings. That's including cupboards and things like that. So again, we can take out cupboards if we want. We can just delete those. And then there's the hot water cylinder room. We won't be doing that through there. And there's another cupboard somewhere else there. So we've got a total of 84 square meters that we've actually got to paint. So straight away, we've got very quickly, somebody doesn't have to come through and measure, somebody doesn't have to come through and calculate. That's all the information. If they actually find that it was slightly under, slightly over or something like that, well, if it's slightly over, they're not going to tell you about it, but if it's slightly under, they can always claim that that's the area that they're working for. You can check in the same place as to that what they were doing. So if they got a claim on 100 square meters, then, you know, as long as it's justified, that's fine. And again, with your carpets, you can actually work out how much carpet area that you've got based on those areas and things like that. So very quite nice tool to use. But again, I want to push all of this information into the database so that this is one of the things. You actually have one source of truth. Now, one of the things that I actually want to do is to, so we just blow those away at this point in time, is that we can actually just take that information now and we can start filtering it down. Now, again, I actually don't want to do it. I want to do it by room numbers. And we go from smallest to largest. Now, this is just something I just want to comment about. Inside, if you do by room numbers, when I was actually importing all of these and giving the room codes for all of these things here, it starts at 10, so it sees it as 10, then 11, and then it goes 1, and then it goes 1, 2, and then it goes 2, and then it goes 1, 3, and then it goes 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it doesn't do it in the right order. So some of the things you've actually got to put a leading O into there. So you've actually just got to put an uppercase thing and an O into there, and then say that is equal to that, and that, to actually make sure you've got all of your room numbers correct. So if you do that, you'll find you've got to do these little tweaks. Oops, there, I've done it again. So I'm actually just going to copy that and paste that down to there. Come on, get down. You see, even Excel's going slow on me at this point in time. P. No, it's not going to want to do. There we are. And so it's just come through there. And then you cut, and then you'd what you then do is basically you take that, and then you'd copy, and then you'd actually go into there, and you'd paste value only, if it's going to let me think about doing it. So I find there's a bit of massaging of the data that I've got just to make sure it all orders in the method that I actually want it to do, and there's a bit of data cleaning and stuff like that. But I find once I started to play with it, I was uploading information quite quickly. So straight away I've got all of those rooms, so straight away I've been able to put in all the wall areas, all the floor areas, all the floor finishes. I've got the floor finish, and I've just called it floor finish, and then what's the areas, so if you want to do that. So one of the things that I didn't actually do in my data set is that I actually hadn't put in the areas. So now I've re-exported. Where's that gone? Oh, no, it's disappeared. Oh, yes, it is. Here, I re-exported, select all, all of the data which I've got in there, which were 78 lines of information. Something's not happened. Let me just go and clear that. So that's come through there. I can now go and filter this information through. So this is my 73 assets that I've got in the database already, and I've got to correct some of that information. So in here I'm actually just putting the filter on and actually just saying wool finishes, and I'm just going to search for wool and go OK, and so that just gives me the wool finishes in each of the individual rooms. Now that I've got those wool finishes, I can actually do the description, so I can actually add it into this descriptor through here. So what I'm trying to do, there's certain things that you need just to make sure your assets are very clearly informative, as far as when you start filtering down by category, location, site, and the condition. But there's other things, and you've got the asset tag, and you've got the description at the top that you can then filter by. But a lot of the other stuff, you're not using that frequently. So what I'm trying to do is only use a couple of variable descriptors where I can descriptors where I can actually put all of the things in there. So if I just go through here and actually just put window, you'll see in the windows here, what I've actually done with the windows is that I've got the width of the window, the height of the window, the area of the window. Then I've got a little code in here which says 1F 1T8. So it's one fixed, one a top hung window. So on here, there's two fixed, and then also it's paint finish. So I've just concatenated a lot of the information that I would have got out of something like here. So I've simplified the information and just pushed it into one location. So that is a way of quickly uploading a lot of information. Now, the other thing that's absolutely beautiful about this that I think is lovely and it's making my process quite quickly, is when you're actually, all you need to do is put in one item of a specific type in the form, and then what you need to do is just see what the last asset is. And if I've got one and I've created one and it's number 58, so that was created, I could actually, if I just drag that down, it'll auto, no, it's not doing it there, but if it was auto incrementing, it would, I'm just going to go back there, I don't want those messed up, I'm actually all of those correct. It will auto increment, and when I actually upload them, it acknowledges those auto increments that I've got on all of the new assets. So when it comes in, it jumps to the end of that list and starts counting beyond that. So that's really handy. You don't actually have to go back and mess around with any fudging through there. Now at the moment I've got quite a rich, at the end of the day, the only information that I need on this is, just because it's a bit unfamiliar at the moment, is my conditions, all of these things in here. At the end of the day, I only actually need the condition as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever the condition is of that particular asset at that point in time. So what I can actually do later on, I can drop all of this information and I can go and clean it up and just delete all of the rest. And all I'd need to do in something like that, if I wanted to do it at this point in time, is that I'd start a new cell up here, and I'd actually just saying cont, if I just was a thing through here, and that is equal to left, and that one there, and comma 1. And so I could then replace all of those, so it's going to give me the condition without all the rest of the blurb through there. So at the beginning it's worth actually having this information, but you can actually clean it so that it can actually be used quite a lot. You could also have another cell which is one with condition with all of this mess in it, and then another one with just that. But then you'd always, I don't know if you could actually make, no, I don't think, it's got to be on the same line of data, and you've got to make sure that changes automatically with that one. So I'd be a little bit nervous about doing that. I only like the one cell doing that. You don't want to repeat the information because it'd be messy. each of those is a row and is only a partial part of the row of the information. So if I came through another time and I wanted to go in, so where am I? The next time thing, I wanted to add brands. So I've got a whole load of brands of information of stuff that I've done, or I've got models, or I've got purchase dates that I've suddenly done a bulk load of purchasing. I can then filter out all of these other ones, since I don't actually need any of these because I've already got the data in there, and all I'm doing is just populating these ones here, or I've actually got some costs that I can actually assign to some of the things. So in the side of valuation, you can split those costs down into component parts or some way if you needed to do that, or else you could just do it on a more simplified manner on that. So again, one of the other things that you can do your auditing, which is great. So you can go and actually do a condition and check everything else. You can add a whole load of employees, you can add customers, you can add funding, you can add insurances, you can actually have users who log into here, and inside the users you can define groups where there are already the groups defined. I don't think you can define any more now I think about it. And inside those you can then give people, you can create a new group, and they can just be another one and you can filter them down by they only work in a certain office building, so you can give them access to that app so that they can log in and report a fault on something like that. So you don't need to do call centers or something like that. It just automatically comes up, and then it also has what they can see or what rights they can actually move through and stuff. So I think it's a seriously powerful tool, and in fact this time round when we were actually capturing a lot of the asset data and things like that, like areas and things, we didn't actually find we were using it that much. But it's sort of useful data to have, so concatenating it into one place where you can actually access that data if you really need it is one way to do. And later on, if you suddenly find, well, actually I'm using that like wall areas all the time, or I'm using floor areas all the time because people are coming in and replacing and doing that sort of stuff, you can always take it out and split it into a separate header to do those things as well. So at this point in time, because I've gathered this information, I'm putting it in against those items, but I'm only putting it into one cell, and then later on I'll stretch it out if I didn't. The reason I'm doing that in some ways is because it's abbreviated, it's there. If I find I need something, I pull it out, but it's also, you're not bulking your data up with suddenly having to say, I've got to go and look through again on your, no, I haven't got the categories or things like that, but if you're on the spreadsheet that I've got so many cells, I've got to look across, another 20 columns across just to find the things that I want. If you can cram them all into one and then you find one bit's usable, just click it out and do it. That's one way of managing those sorts of things. Anyway, that's my first thought on playing with this. Again, after picking it up and putting it down, I'll just, at this point in time, I'm doing an exercise on this of actually pushing all this information up into mine, because it's my particular house. So I'm going to do it and actually manage that all the way through and actually have that up and running. I've just got to make sure that I've got less than 250 items just so they can sit there quietly. But it's a good exercise to identify those things. Later on, and in fact, one of the things that I found quite useful at this point in time, I just found a broken window that I need to do, but there's certain other things around the house that I can actually identify for maintenance. So that's one thing that I want to do. So I want to capture all of this information on here, and then I want to look at different assets. So at this point in time, I'm actually doing a bulk upload because I've got all the information. For the one that I'm doing for my daughter, I'm only going to do a couple of each item types and push that information up there. Now, the other thing that I'm using with mine is I'm suddenly thinking, I only want a certain amount of information there, but can I go somewhere else to get that information? So one of the things that I'm going to do with my one, which I'm actually using the URL, is that I'm just going to give it a link to this, so I know where that information is. So if I'm in the asset or I'm actually just looking at a particular asset, I'm suddenly thinking there's a whole lot more information that I actually need on that. I'll just go and look in this, where I've actually got this stuff setting up on my actual server. So I can go and find that information elsewhere. So if I've got maintenance schedules and things, and in fact that's maybe something which I might do. I've got some fans and I've got some other bits of equipment, and I've got things like label makers and stuff where I've got the little handbook or maybe a URL link for some of those things, and I might actually start doing little documents that I actually put up on my server just so that I can access them. And this is all in real preparation for doing a bigger project, but I also think in some ways actually having the app is a great way of owners being able to actually just do things. Like it's almost like I've got to do a to-do list of things that I've got to do around the house, and I'll do them this summer. So as long as you're under the 250, why not use something like this? I think it does most of the things that you want. I've got 75 and I've got all of my room, walls, ceilings, doors, with things and stuff like that. The next things that I want to do are things like toilets, all the hardware and things like that. Maybe a bit of joinery from the kitchen, or maybe a couple of bits of equipment like the washing machine or the drying machine or something like that. And in fact, this might be an idea for doing some of the tenanted places. If you've got tenants who are actually in a place and they've got something that is broken or things, they've got a link into that they can actually view. They can take a photo. It just automatically uploads and it flags. So the other thing with that as well is that you do have in those setups to actually send messages, or if something changes, if something goes into a broken state, that you send an email. So you can actually do some email things. I've got to do a bit more research into that part of the thing, but there may be a way of, if they classify it as a specific thing, then it automatically comes through to you as an email, so you know it needs to be fixed. So I actually think there's a lot more potential in what I actually had initially, which was just these documents and the way that they were, because they're quite static, to something that you've actually got on your mobile phone as an app that you can check, or you can just go around and you're suddenly thinking, well, it's on there, and you use it maybe once a month or once 2 months, or something that you found something broken, and you collect a whole lot of little things that you do that suddenly the weather comes good and you suddenly think, I've got a couple of days off, I need to finish those ones off, and you just will start working through those. So I hope that's been of interest to you. Thank you very much for watching. If you found it of interest, can you please give a thumbs up? Thank you.